Okay, so on to the next Skip the Line reaction, man. This is for Campbell Cravens, obviously. The first one we did was Get Out the Car. That was his first request. This is number 2 of the 3-part series. We're going to go straight into it. Man, the way this man writes is so damn intricate. It's incredible. So this is number 2 of that. I think still probably dealing with maybe his friend's death. I'm not entirely sure. What we're going to do, as we did in the first one, we're going to just give it like one quick listen through first, and then we'll go into the breakdown. Okay, that just gives me a bit of time to sort of like just get my thoughts together on the actual track itself. So let's get straight into it, man. Aesop Rock, Shrunk. Let's go.
And letters and other alphanumerics that changes hourly forever. My last name, 1,000 vowels fading down a sinkhole to a susurrus. It couldn't just be John Doe or Bingo. My address, a made-up language written out of living glyphs, lifted from demonic literature and religious texts. Telephone uncovered by purveyors of the Ouija, then checked against the CBGB women's room graffiti. My socialist Sudoku, my age is obscure. My in case of emergency is in the daisies chasing birds. Employed by trillionaires with perfect teeth and pores, and people who open doors for the people who open doors. My medical history is a course at SUNY Buffalo. Charlatan psychiatry and troubleshooting undertow. Nervous in the service still. I'm burger meat and purple pills here. Thank you, but call your name. Sure you will. Skipped lunch. I'm shrunk. You're sitting in a waiting room, you're dreaming of Arcadia, you're feeling like a baby tooth, the waiting panacea, channeling your inner Beowulf in purgatory just before you pay up to fillet yourself and others in the name of help. Colon a conveyor belt, in an ego death alone, no telephone from Gabriel. I'm half a human, Coleman over home and garden stoned. Gold chains over turtlenecks, cigars over cologne. 1,000 shitty paintings wrap around a wounded animal. Womb with the Schubert, he's a future human cannonball. Little fuckers fighting, mother hiding in her Hulu. I'm climbing up the stucco, let's get to the seppuku. That pretty penny turned the prickly into Benji. If you save up all your winnings, then you get to count your blessings. I finally crunched the budget up and punched the button. She called my name out and pushed me into an oven. The fuck? I'm shrunk.
Mad. This is very clever.
She says, I'm not your enemy. I said, that sounds like something that my enemy would say. Instead of playing off the chemistry, she said, you're being difficult. I said, I'm being guarded. You're $250,000 dead. I get more guidance from my barber. Look, I'm not good at this. I grew up in a noogie fest. You built your wolf's pie or said goodbye to all your cookie puss. Here's one. Every time my telephone buzzes, I see images of hooded riders setting fire to hundreds. She said, when you start getting all expressive and symbolic, it's impossible to actualize an honest diagnostic. I said, when you start getting all exact and algebraic, I'm reminded it's a racket, not a rehabilitation, okay? Agree to disagree as grown-ups from opposing clans, honoring the push and pull, I should've called the Scolamance, oh well. Preservation is a doozy, will you be needing another appointment? Absolutely, I'm shrunk.
Jesus. Good Lord, man. This is gonna be a fucking... This dude, the way this dude writes is so insane. So insane. Okay. Okay, let's try to break this down. Let's go. Okay, first off, I actually like the way it actually starts, where it's kind of like, it's ground control, right? So it's basically talking about his mind. His mind is ground control. It's kind of like entering his own sort of psyche, entering his own awareness. Like when he enters that arcade, that arcade's very noisy, full of games, and that's basically how he's depicting his mind. The way he plays with it is he plays it as like he's playing a particular game called Shrunk, and it's a 3-part introspective game where he plays about, he's filling out the form first and foremost. That's what I get from the first one. So level number 1 is filling out the form, which then he has to introspect on all of his credentials. Number 2 is then sitting in the waiting room and then having to introspect then, like, okay, what am I going to say on his life, that kind of thing, until she actually calls him up. And then the final stage, which is kind of like fighting the final boss, is actually going into the psychiatrist's room or going to the psychologist's room and then having to sort of, like he says, do that push and pull thing, which he didn't like so much. And introspect further on that, or introspect at least on the interaction over there. So he played as like a 3-level game, but all of it is within his ground control, right? So it's the control unit that controls all of his forces essentially. So that's pretty insane straight off the bat. Very, very, very cool. I like the fact that this succeeds the first track where his friend died, because obviously you go through that whole mental breakthrough, mental breakdown, the psych therapy. Okay, so it's all a therapeutic thing. Very clever. I like the beat as well.
Random set of numbers and letters and other alphanumerics that changes hourly forever.
Now that's actually something I was thinking of at first. I wasn't entirely sure if that's what it was tied into that, but there was a Greek, I'm not sure if he was a philosopher or not, but I think there was a Greek somebody, and I'm not sure if he was a philosopher or whatever else, that had a name of Aesop, right? I think it was that. And obviously if you actually just think of the different like Greek letters and things like that, and there might have been numbers in it as well. And someone in the comments actually reminded me of that, to give credit to that person, saying, have you never heard of Aesop's Fables? When he actually said Aesop's Fables, it immediately clicked something in my mind, where I had actually read something actually in Galileo's Finger, in this book over here. Give me a second, I'll show you now. It's actually in this book itself, Galileo's Finger, that actually speaks of, very briefly, but speaks of, I can't remember exactly what it is, but it speaks of Aesop and Aesop's Fables, which is actually quite interesting. But yeah, so basically I wasn't entirely sure that he actually attached that, but that comment in the comment section on the first video I reacted to kind of like sparked something and said, oh shit, he actually attached it to a Greek mythology to a certain degree.
My first name is a random set of numbers and letters and other alphanumerics that changes hourly forever.
Fire.
My last name, 1,000 vowels fading down a sinkhole to a susurrus. It couldn't just be
fading down a sinkhole to a susurrus. That's pretty cool. I like the way he says susurrus, because I think susurrus is actually sort of like whispering, right, to a susurrus. Like it's, my last name is kind of, but the way he writes it, absolutely. My first name is a random set of numbers and letters in the alphanumeric that changes hourly forever.
My last
name is 1,000 vowels fading down a sinkhole. So rock, fading down super clever. Fading down a sinkhole to a susurrus until it actually goes silent, right? So you hear it up until it goes silent down the sinkhole. That's fucking clever.
1,000 vowels fading down a sinkhole to a susurrus. It couldn't just be John Doe or Bingo.
Yeah, so there's basically saying it couldn't just be some random name, but it actually had to be something more in depth than that.
My address.
He's filling out the form over here, which I think is very clever. So like he's introspecting on everything that he's writing, like what's your name, what's your surname, what's your telephone number, what's your address. And he's, you know, all of the way he's actually being very sort of creative in how he's thinking about this. But anyway.
A made-up language written out of living glyphs, lifted from demonic literature and religious texts. Telephone uncovered by purveyors.
It's crazy that he actually says that, where my address is made-up language written out in living glyphs, which is 100% 100%. That is your, language was created by man, for man to communicate. So he's basically what he's saying is, I don't know where I live, right? I don't know where I reside. I don't know what is home, essentially. All I know is my physical address. The physical address is, it's just a made-up name, right? That was written out in living glyphs, essentially. So I know that, but if he's thinking about the deeper meaning of that, is like, I don't actually know where my address is. Where do I actually reside, essentially? That also may have changed hands multiple times in histories through conquering and stuff like that, right? That address could have changed 1,000 times. I don't know. I live on a piece of land, and that piece of land is marked something that was created by man, right? Fire.
Glyphs lifted from demonic literature and religious texts. Telephone uncovered by purveyors of the Ouija.
That's crazy. Telephone uncovered by the purveyors of the Ouija. So my telephone is uncovered by so purveyors are basically people that sell specific things of Ouija. So purveyors of the Ouija. So it's the sellers of Ouija. So the purveyors of demonic formats. I'm not entirely sure, but like, my telephone uncovered by purveyors of the Ouija. So basically his telephone, it's almost like he's saying his telephone is 666. It's basically, my telephone is uncovered by the devil. Fire.
From demonic literature and religious texts. Telephone uncovered by purveyors of the Ouija. Then checked against the CBGB women's room graffiti. My social is Sudoku. My social is Sudoku. My age is obscure. Fuck, that's fire. My social is Sudoku. So he's basically saying his social is a puzzle. Like, he doesn't really know. And it's like a grid puzzle of numbers, essentially. So he's basically saying, I don't really have a social. It's actually a bit of a puzzle at the end of the day. There's no one close to me. There's like, these numbers change all of the time, right? It really is a grid puzzle. That's very clever. My in case of emergency is in the daisies chasing birds.
My in case of emergency is in the daisies chasing birds. That's fire. Okay, I like the way he's actually phrased that. So your in case of emergency, you'd actually put as a person. My in case of emergency is a person. But he says my in case of emergency is fucking running through daisies chasing birds, because that's where I actually find some peace. Or my in case of he actually might be saying my in case of emergency is possibly his partner, who's kind of like not living in the real world, is out there in the daisies chasing birds. Right, so it's like, it's pointless contacting her because she doesn't see the world for what it is, right? It's all la-di-das. She thinks that the fucking world is just this beautiful fucking place, and there's never anything that can go wrong with it, essentially. So he could be saying that as well.
Sudoku. My age is obscure. My in case of emergency is in the daisies chasing birds. Employed by trillionaires with perfect teeth and pores, and people who open doors for the people who open doors.
It's fucking fire. Employed by trillionaires with perfect teeth and pores, and people who open doors for people who open doors. So like, they won't open the doors for me, it's like, it's basically who you know, right? So those people, yes, they open doors, but they won't be opening doors for you. They're going to be opening doors for the people who open doors. So they're only really going to sort of scratch the back of other trillionaires, right? Other people that have money is who they're going to be opening doors for. They don't open doors for the poor. That's for fucking sure, right? They use the poor in order for them to open doors for other people who open doors, right? So it's all exploitative. That's very clever.
By trillionaires with perfect teeth and pores, and people who open doors for the people who open doors. My medical history is a course in SUNY Buffalo. Charlotte.
My medical history is a course in SUNY Buffalo. So he's actually got a medical. So basically, his medical history is basically saying, what's your medical history? Do you have any ailments? Do you have any psychological issues? Blah, 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 blah. But he's saying my medical history is the fact that I've actually done a medical degree or course of somewhat in some university.
The people who open doors. My medical history is a course at SUNY Buffalo. Charlatan psychiatry and troubleshooting undertow.
Oh, you see, so you actually studied psychiatry.
History is a course at SUNY Buffalo. Charlatan psychiatry and troubleshooting undertow. nervous in the service still. I'm burger meat and purple pill.
That's fire. I'm nervous in the service still, even though that is what it's basically what he studied to service, to service someone. But I'm nervous in the service still, so he's basically saying I'm still an amateur. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not really good at this. I'm still burger meat. I'm still burger meat and purple pills. Right. So he's basically saying I'm just this body of meat and flesh. Right. That just ingests pills that help me to deal with my own fucking reality. That's how bad that's how amateur I am at this.
Psychiatry and troubleshooting undertow. Nervous in the service still. I'm burger meat and purple pills here. Thank you, but call your name. Sure you will.
Yeah, fuck fire. Yeah, thank you, but call your name. I'm sure you will. Of course you will. Why? Because bag of money. That's why each level he drops a bag of money to get onto the next level, right? Because that is basically alluding to this whole industry is just about the money. It's not really about the rehabilitation.
Still, I'm burger meat and purple pills here. Thank you, but call your name. Sure you will.
Sure you will. You're not going to miss out on that paycheck.
Lunch.
Check, he drops the money.
I'm shrunk. You're sitting in a waiting room. You're dreaming of our.
I love what he says there. You back up all your manias, all the fucking manic thoughts, all the anxiety and all of the insecurities and all of that kind of thing. So you back them up, right? Because you're about to go into a very sort of safe space, but very uncomfortable, not so safe space. Very cool.
I'm shrunk. You back up all your manias. You're sitting in a waiting room. You're dreaming of Arcadia. You're feeling like a baby tooth.
I love this line over
here. Sitting in a waiting room. You're dreaming of
You're dreaming of Arcadia. You're feeling like a baby tooth, because a baby tooth is only there temporarily because he's in the fucking waiting room, right? Because a baby tooth eventually, will fall out. So he's basically feeling like a baby tooth and feels like he's going to fall out, right? And when he goes in, that's when the permanent, more serious teeth come out. Fire! So cleverly written, man.
Arcadia, you're feeling like a baby tooth, the waiting panacea, channeling your inner Beowulf.
So, okay, what did he say over here?
Arcadia, you're feeling like a baby tooth, the waiting panacea, channeling.
So awaiting panacea is basically remedy. So awaiting remedy and channeling your Beowulf. I'm not entirely sure what Beowulf is.
Your inner Beowulf in purgatory just before you pay up to fillet yourself in
fucking fire.
You're channeling your inner Beowulf in purgatory.
So in purgatory, just before you pay up to fillet yourself, right? I'm gonna go and pay up to get myself absolutely slayed.
Just before you pay up to fillet yourself, and others in the name of help, coal on the conveyor belt.
And others in the name of help, coal on the conveyor belt. All of the same, coal on a conveyor belt, all to get the same exact sort of treatment, but all structured to make money is basically what he's saying. Does it really help? Well, we don't know. Probably not, essentially. It does help people. I mean, psychology obviously, does help people. You can't say that it doesn't help people. It's more actually an outlet. It's having a stranger to be able to talk to that, you're not going to say some of these things to the people closest to you. But in the name of help, right? In the name of trying to get help, coal on a conveyor belt. And the fact that he actually says that right at the end of the song, I'm skipping ahead here, but just for a second, at the head of the song where he says, would you have another appointment? He says, well, I'll take another appointment. Even though he feels like this is all bullshit, it's someone to talk to, right? And that's why he will get the other appointment. So basically he's saying, does it really help? I'm not sure if it really helps, but in a way it does actually help because I get someone to talk to, right? But at the end of the day, I'm not stupid. I understand that I'm just coal on a conveyor belt. Right, about to just go into the inferno to get burnt up, right? To so-called burn up my insecurities, right? But it's it just keeps rotating and going. It's like this infinite circle. I like that.
In an ego death alone, no telephone from Gabriel. I'm half a human, combing over home and garden stone. Gold chains over turtlenecks, cigars over cologne.
That's actually, I'm half human combing over home and garden stoned, which is obviously a magazine.
Combing over home and garden stoned. Gold chains over turtlenecks.
So gold chain, so he's basically when you're actually sitting in the waiting room and you're looking through magazines, and he's looking through obviously the Habitat magazine, which is talking about things, and then he's looking at other magazines where it's like gold chains over turtlenecks. So it's like picking out products that he would actually choose, right? I'd pick out gold chains over turtlenecks, which is kind of like going through like a catalog. And he's just saying, oh, I'd probably have that, I'd probably go for cigars over cologne, essentially, but it's all referring to the magazines itself, all referring to the entire atmosphere of that waiting room. Is pretty cool.
Cigars over cologne, 1,000 shitty paintings wrap around a wounded animal.
I fucking love it, 1,000 shitty paintings. If you go into a psychologist's office, they've got all of these different paintings, but they're all fucking shitty paintings, right? They don't really understand or appreciate what art really is. It's just something to put up on the wall. But it's 1,000 shitty paintings around him in this waiting room, wrapped around a wounded animal, with him sitting in the waiting room. Fire, so clear.
Turtleneck cigars over cologne, 1,000 shitty paintings wrap around a wounded animal. Womb with the Schubert, he's a future human cannibal.
Hey.
Little fuckers fighting, mother hiding in her Hulu. I'm climbing.
I love that. I mean, I like the fact that he's explaining every single thing that would happen in the waiting room over here, and these two little shitty motherfuckers fighting over something, and the mother stuck in her Hulu, hiding behind her Hulu. So Hulu's obviously the video movie platform, so she's just watching her phone, essentially, not paying attention to these kids while they fight and have it at each other. Climbing up well, let's just see here.
He's a future human cannibal. Little fuckers fighting, mother hiding in her Hulu. I'm climbing up the stucco.
I like that. I'm climbing up the stucco. Let's get to the seppuku. So the stucco, I'm not entirely sure what the stucco is, but I'm assuming it's some sort of fucking climb. I don't know, peak or steeple or something like that. But let's get to the seppuku. Seppuku is a Japanese suicide ritual, right? So that's seppuku.
Let's get to the seppuku, That pretty penny turned the prickly into Benji. If you save up all your winnings, then you get to count your blessings.
If you save up all your winnings and you get to count your blessings. Fire. I like what he's saying over here. But it's like, are we really counting our blessings? Okay, so I've saved up all my winnings and I get to count my blessings. Where's my fucking blessings? Okay.
And he turned the prickly into Benji. If you save up all your winnings, then you get to count your blessings. I finally crunched the budget up and punched the button. She called my name out and pushed me into it.
So I finally crunched the numbers up and punched the button. And what happens? She calls my name up and I've got to go and deal with my life because my life's still not fucking happy. Where's the fucking blessings, essentially? It's like, yeah, I did the maths on this blessings thing and I still don't see the blessings. I still need to go see someone because I'm fucking depressed or I'm fucking down, right? I like that.
When up and the fuck?
Final level.
Shrunk.
It's amazing how he's got, before he had like a dollar, like if you saw in the very beginning, level 1, he just had like $1 or so, right? So he had very little money. Level 2, he had a bag of coins. Level 3, he has now a cup of coins, right? So it's basically telling you how much these levels get harder and harder and harder, right? And then it also ties into his winnings, right? So you save up all your winnings and then you count your blessings. So it's basically taking his winnings, but every time he's using up his winnings, it's actually getting harder and harder, and he needs to spend more and more for this, right? As the levels get harder, he needs to spend more money, essentially. So it's very clever that he's actually alluding to that via the whole arcade vibe, right? Where it's like, fuck, I failed. I need to put another coin. I failed. I need to put another coin. I failed. I need to put another coin, right? I'm just spending money, but I'm not entirely sure where the win is. You know what I mean?
She says, I'm not your enemy. I said, that sounds like something that my enemy would say. Instead of...
I wonder why. I mean, would psychologists say that? I've never had a psychologist tell me that I'm not your enemy. But it's like, that would be weird. It's like, I'm not your enemy. Why did you say that? Why would you say that? Just,
She says, I'm not your enemy. I said, that sounds like something that my enemy would say. Instead of playing off the chemistry, she said, you're being difficult. I said, I'm being guarded. You're $250,000 debt. I get more guidance from my barber. Look.
That's fire. Okay, so it's basically telling him something that he already fucking knows. He's like, yes, I'm being guarded. Of course I'm being guarded, right? I'm in an uncomfortable situation. I don't really want to speak of my situation. I don't really want to speak of my weaknesses and my tribulations. And I don't really want to introspect on myself, because who really does, right? And she's like, you're being guarded. He's like, yes, I'm being guarded. And he's like, you're $250,000 in debt. It's like, fuck, man, tell me something my barber wouldn't say, man. I get more advice from my fucking barber, okay? Stop telling me obvious things. Let's go.
I'm not good at this. I grew up in a noogie fest. You built your walls up higher, said goodbye to all your cookie puss. Here's one. Every time my telephone buzzes, I see images of hooded riders setting fire to hundreds.
That's fire. Every time my telephone buzzes, I see images of. So it's basically he's referencing his anxiety, right? So every time my telephone buzzes, I see images of hooded riders setting fire to hundreds. Right, so it's like every time my phone buzzes, I kind of feel like what goes on in my mind just feels like it's pillaging to a certain degree. I like that.
She said, when you start getting all expressive and symbolic, it's impossible to actualize an honest diagnostic.
I love the way he wrote that. It's like when you start getting all spiritual and symbolic, it's impossible to actualize a diagnostic, as if you would diagnose. You know, like it's run diagnostics on a car, which kind of like references like what they are, the coal on the conveyor belt. It's like we're all the same to everybody. To actualize a diagnostic, why would you refer? Let's run a diagnostic on this. Let's run a diagnostic on a car. Let's run a diagnostic on a system. So it's almost motoric and robotic. Right? The way he wrote that. It's like you don't see me as a human being, you see me as a robot. And this robot is not functioning the way you want him to function, right? So I'm not programmed correctly. So you're telling me it's like I can't run a diagnostic on you because you're not cooperating. I need you to be more like the other robots out there in order for me to assess you properly, instead of actually assessing him for the individual he is.
I said, when you start aggressive and symbolic, it's impossible to actualize an honest diagnostic. I said, when you start getting all exact and algebraic,
I love that. I said, when you start getting exact and algebraic, I'm reminded it's a racket and not a rehabilitation. So he's basically saying, okay, so this is all just a money-making fucking scheme, and it's not really a rehabilitation. It's literally just come here and we'll talk about just enough so that we can get you here the next time and the next time and the next time. And basically, it's like if you actually think of a glass of water and you think of our emotions and our tribulations and all our pain and fears and insecurities, all one drop at a time on that glass, and then that glass overfills. And when you go to a psychologist, they might let a little bit out of that glass, but you're still living life. So that glass fills up again very quickly, and it's going to continue filling up again very quickly because life continues, right? So they literally just let go of a little bit of water so you feel just a little bit good for today, and next week you're back again with that glass full again. Then they'll release, so they never ever get to the bottom. They never let all of the water out, so that, you know, at least you've got a real breathing space, like really take the log out of your chest. They don't do that, right? The whole system is designed on getting you back again and again and again and again and again and again to talk, right? And I like the fact that he's actually referenced that to the barber, because every time you go to the barber, he basically does the same thing, because you would talk to him and you'd say a couple of things to him, and that kind of releases a little bit from that full glass. And it's basically saying that this is all just a racket. It's just a racket to sort of alleviate just enough to get me back next week, where I'm topped up again very quickly, and then you alleviate just enough to get me back the next week, and then on and on and on and on and on and on and on. It's just a money-making racket. Let's go.
Reminded it's a racket, not a rehabilitation, okay? Agree to disagree as grown-ups from opposing clans, honoring the push and pull.
I love that. Agree to disagree as grown-ups from opposing clans. So like we might not agree with each other, but I can honor the push and pull. I can honor the fact that I have to give you something in order to actually get something, essentially. And I'm feeling very uncomfortable with the giving, which means I understand that I might not actually that I might not actually get from you as well. And that's basically the psychological fight that you will have in a psychology office. Like, you don't really want to put yourself in such a vulnerable position that you feel like you're a real piece of shit, right? But I understand how this works. I understand that I do need to give something in order to get something. I understand that, but it doesn't kind of work for me.
Should have called the Scolamance. Oh well. Preservation is a doozy. Will you be needing another appointment?
I love that. Preservation is a doozy. So actually preserving myself is something I'm not entirely sure how to do, man. It's a doozy. Who knows how to preserve themselves? Who knows what's the right fucking way in their life? Nobody does, essentially. But again, this is where he ends it. Is it, will you need another appointment? Is like, yes, absolutely.
Absolutely, I'm shrunk.
Absolutely, I'm shrunk. I like that he's playing with the shrunk and the shrink, essentially. So if you actually think you're going to see a shrink to make you feel better about yourself, to kind of elevate you a little bit, but he's kind of alluding to the fact that I go to see a shrink and I feel shrunk, I feel smaller as a person, as opposed to feeling a little bit better about myself. I feel smaller as a person and more insignificant, essentially. That's why I have to come back next week. Absolutely, because maybe if I do enough of the sessions, I won't feel so shrunk. Right, but I've been shrunk by a shrink, which I think is very fucking cool, alluding to the actual I've been psychoanalyzed, right? But by being psychoanalyzed, I actually feel smaller of a person than I really was, right? Very, 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 very clever. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I love the way this man writes. Absolutely love the way this man writes. It's so intriguing, so captivating, and so thought-provoking. It really, really is. Love the way this man writes. Anyway, these reactions are long, but I hope you guys are at least enjoying. I love you all. Please stay happy, stay healthy. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.